Greetings, I'm Samuel Gladden, Dean of the College of Liberal Arts, Education, and Human Development here at the University of New Orleans. Thank you for joining us for our series, COLAEHD in Conversation. In this series, I interview our faculty who are world-renowned for their work in research and creative activity. If you'd like to know more about them or about us, write to me at sgladden@uno.edu. And now, enjoy COLAEHD in Conversation. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Max Krochmal. Dr. Krochmal is a professor of history and the director of our doctoral program in Justice Studies. He also holds the Czech Republic Professorship in Comparative Urban Planning. Welcome, Dr. Krochmal.
Thanks, good to be here.
Thank you for joining us today. It's good to see you. Tell us a bit about your background and what brought you to UNO.
Yeah, well, it's great to be at UNO. I've been here about a year and a half. I'm originally from Reno, Nevada, and I grew up, I guess, in a working class family there, and eventually made my way to college in California and graduate school at Duke University. And so I have some family ties to the New Orleans area, which made me very attracted to this place, and I've had a long time relationship with the city. But I think what really brought me here was the university's mission to engage as an urban serving public research institution. Right. So I was really attracted by the idea of being in an environment that was supportive of conducting collaborative, community engaged research, and being able to teach other scholars how to do that work, to apply what we do in real world settings.
Tell us a bit about your primary areas of interest and your research that you've done here and before you came to UNO.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I do research on labor and civil rights movements, broadly speaking, social movements, community organizing, coalition building. So my work is historical. I hold a Ph.D. in history, but also kind of branches out into other disciplines in ethnic studies. I do work in African American history, U.S. Latino history, labor and working class studies, and I do a lot of oral history research and even some ethnography, so I branch out beyond the archive. So yeah, that's the broad strokes.
Quite recently, your work in your discipline was very important in the decision of a major court case in Galveston County, Texas. Tell us a bit about that.
Sure, yeah. So I've written a lot about Texas. My work's there and in the American West and South and somewhat comparatively across borders too. So I was honored. I received a call from the United States Department of Justice, and they were looking for expertise related to the history of African American and Mexican American, Latino civil rights struggles, voting rights, and particularly coalition building. Mm-hmm. And I had done some research in the Galveston area as part of a huge statewide collaborative oral history project that I led. And they found that work, they found me, and engaged me to work on that case. So it was a really remarkable process for me. I got to do what I always do as a historian, dig into the archives, dig into newspapers, look at the oral history interviews that my team had conducted there, and use all of that to understand this process by which African Americans, in coalition with Latinos, won the right to vote in Galveston, gained the franchise, were able to achieve substantive representation for their communities. And then to chart the history of how that district had been taken away from them, mm-hmm. and try to understand how and why this particular act of racial gerrymandering took place. And so I wrote a report for the Department of Justice, and it was entered into evidence in federal court. And I even had the opportunity or the responsibility to go and testify in person, mm-hmm. and go through cross-examination and all of that. But it was a really powerful experience for me. I had to think long and hard about our epistemologies, how we know what we know, mm-hmm. our methodologies, and how to defend our evidence for a very different audience than I was accustomed to, and even sometimes a hostile audience. And it was also very powerful because it was directly engaged in this community, and so it meant a lot to me that the other plaintiffs in the case, besides the Department of Justice, which were civil rights groups and local voters, Black and Latino voters who had felt like they'd been disfranchised, I think they really saw themselves reflected in my report and in my testimony, and so that was a really powerful affirmation, I guess, of my work.
This is just one of many examples of how the work that we do at the university has real-world effects. Congratulations on that work. That's quite an achievement. What are you working on now?
Well, I was just, if I could say, that my approach generally is to go and ask questions and listen and learn. And so I do a lot of oral history research, and that was, I think, what guided the work I did in Galveston. And it's what's guiding my work now that I'm in New Orleans full time and able to start exploring and learning more about this community and what kind of needs there are in terms of research, and then also, how I can contribute something. So right now I've been working on a collaborative exhibit on the history of black workers organizing in the city. So labor organizing among African Americans in New Orleans history, really since the Civil War forward. There's an earlier rich history as well, going back to the uprising of 1811, but we're really focusing on the period since the Civil War. And with collaborators at the New Orleans Workers Center for Racial Justice, which was a community organization, is really the driver behind the project. A colleague here at UNO, a couple of colleagues at Tulane, we're all working together on this, as well as with many of our students in the process. And so soon after Mardi Gras, we're going to open an exhibition that charts that history across, I think, 13 panels. Workers in every imaginable industry, from the longshoremen that were really at the center of the city's shipping economy, through the industrial unions of the CIO period of the 1930s and 40s, and then more recently hotel workers at the center of the tourist economy, but also sectors you might not think of right away. There was a sort of light industrial sewing industry in the city, small manufacturing concerns that African Americans engaged in, worked in. So we have a section on that. We have a section on sex workers and all of their labor concerns. So it's a really exciting community engaged project, and I'm looking forward to having that out in the world. And I think for me, where it's taking me is a larger project to look at the history of service work in the city, and to think about service workers and how service workers have organized through workers' centers and labor unions, and also think about that comparatively with a city that has long fascinated me and in some ways is a good foil for New Orleans, and that is Las Vegas.
Oh, that's wonderful. Wow. So the exhibit takes place in mid-spring 2024, is that right?
Yes.
And where is it taking place?
It's going to open at the small center for collaborative architecture at Tulane. They have a space on Barone Street, but our hope is that it'll then travel to other locations around the city. So we want to have it in different spaces and make sure it's accessible to the community.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure we'll have a place where people can look that up and find out where it is.
We will. Yes,
moment.
we will.
Yeah.
Yes, congratulations on that too. What classes do you usually teach?
Well, it's a constantly evolving catalog, but I teach courses in African American history, in public and oral history methods. I teach courses in labor and working class history, in Latino history, anything U.S. history. And then I'm doing now, through the Justice Studies program, courses that take an interdisciplinary approach to looking at things like social movements and where they come from, general histories and theories of justice, and then research methods around justice studies. So I'm kind of a lot of intersecting fields.
Right. The program is in its third year, correct? So tell us a bit about what students experience there in terms of choosing among 4 concentrations for their final portion of their study, the major portion of their study, but also the kinds of opportunities they have to collaborate with faculty who are both in the program and from different programs in the college, and with individuals in the community as well.
Yeah, the program, the Ph.D. in Justice Studies, it's a new offering. As you said, we're just wrapping up, we're halfway through our third year now. And our students choose from 4 formal concentrations, although there's some overlap: social justice, educational justice, environmental justice, and criminal justice, or the criminal legal system, carceral studies. And we work with the students to develop a community engaged collaborative research project. We have faculty from 20 different faculty members from across the college and even other parts of the university who advise our students, who teach our classes, who engage in this intellectual journey and community. And so the students kind of chart their own path with the close direction of a faculty member. So our most advanced students right now are in the process of proposing dissertations. Right. There's some really exciting projects that are taking shape. Mm-hmm. And one initiative we have is that we've recently received support from the Mellon Foundation to do public humanities in action. And so we are working with colleagues in 2 other units on campus to use this moment to do public-facing programs that also produce research that also help teach our students. And I should probably give a concrete example of one of those projects is that in the spring we're going to be bringing in a speaker who has expert in both African American studies and Indigenous and Native studies, and he's helping us to think about our research methods in working in those communities, but also where they intersect and the question of what is Louisiana Creole peoplehood. Right. And so we're really excited about that, and we have some students who are doing work in those fields that I think will gain a lot from it.
That's terrific. Yeah. If people want to know more about the program, about you and your work, how can they contact you?
Yeah, I'm available, probably easiest to find my website, which is professormax.org. You can also reach me via email at justice@uno.edu. And I certainly can look at my publications. I've written a lot, a couple of books on Texas civil rights history and labor history, and so that's a great way to learn more.
Thank you again for your time.
Mm-hmm. Sure
Great
thing.
Conversation. Thanks, Dr. Krochmal, and thank you all for joining us today. Thank you again for joining us for today's edition of COLAEHD in Conversation. For more information about today's guest, please see the links below. I'm Dean Samuel Gladden, and I hope to see you again for another edition of COLAEHD in Conversation.